think it was Alexander Pope, but I might be wrong about that, who said nothing human is foreign to me. And that's a hell of a statement, right? Because if you think about all the things that human beings are capable of, and they're capable of some, like if you really want to know what people are capable of, you should read about Unit 731. But I would not recommend it, because if you read it you will never forget it, and you will be sorry that you read it. But you'll know. Anyways, to say that nothing human is foreign to you, that's a hell of a thing to say, because that means that what other people have done you could do, and that also means you need to take responsibility for that. That's no joke, you know, it's a big deal to do that in even a trivial manner. Anyway, so the idea is that you can elevate, if you elevate your viewpoint to some transcendent ethic, you want what's ultimately good, you really want that, whatever that is, you don't know, but that's what you're aiming at. Says that, well then it says this strange thing that, well what you want will all of a sudden come to you. Well that's a proposition, and it's the proposition that's basically played out in the movie. It's a hypothesis. The hypothesis is the best way to orient yourself in life is to orient yourself towards the highest good that you're capable of imagining, and then aim at that, and then things will work out the best way they can for you. And I believe that's correct. My observation of life has led me to see that that seems to be correct. So for example, you don't get something you don't aim at. That just doesn't work out, and so lots of people aim at nothing, and that's what they get. So if you aim at something, you have a reasonable crack at getting it. You know, you tend to change what you're aiming at a bit along the way, because like what do you know, you aim there, you're wrong, but you get a little closer and then you aim there, and you're still wrong, you get a little closer and you aim there, and you know, as you move towards what you're aiming at, your characterization of what to aim at becomes more and more sophisticated. And so it doesn't really matter if you're wrong to begin with, as long as you're smart enough to learn on the way, and as long as you specify a goal. So specify a vague one. I want things to be the best they could be, and I'm willing to learn what best means as I go along. Okay, so fine. And then you get what you truly need, we'll say. Well, maybe not. No, if your heart is in your dream, what does that mean? Well, that to me reflects this idea of a kind of integrated viewpoint. One of the things Jung proposed was that as you integrate yourself psychologically, what happens is that your rationality integrates with your emotions. They stop being opposed forces. Like the Enlightenment idea is that rationality and desire are opposites and enemies in a sense, and the Jungian notion is, and the psychoanalytic notion I would say in general, and the humanist notion even perhaps, is that no, that's not right. What you want to do is you want to integrate your rationality with your emotions and your motivations. They're not separable, even technically. They have to work together, and that all has to be integrated with your body. Not only do you have to take your heart into account and notice what it is that you want and don't want, but you also have to embody that. You have to act that out in the world. So fine, so that's what that means. And if you do that, then, well, then your horizons open up. And I also believe that's true. You know, I've known people in my life who are insanely successful, like insanely successful. And those people are, like they're pretty damn together, man. You know, like they're tough, smart, strategic, generous. You know, they're always giving people opportunities, honest, like they've got it all. You know, and sometimes, now I'm not saying that everyone who's wildly successful is wildly successful because they've got themselves together, but, you know, because there are crooks, and, you know, there are people who gain status one way or another by nefarious means. But that's a lot more unstable than you might think. And I can't say exactly if you pursue that route, you're going to pay for it. Like, you'll have your money or whatever it is, but it's not going to do much good for you. So it does seem to me to be the people that have integrated themselves and that are pursuing a noble goal, a high goal, who actually are able to do remarkable things. And remarkable things can be done at every level. You know, it isn't like you have to change the world. Like as a whole, it could be that you do something remarkable within your family. You know, and that can be tremendously admirable. You know, someone's got to take care of a family member if they're sick. You know, like there's heroic acts that you can undertake in the local environment, and maybe that will go unheralded, let's say, but that doesn't mean that it isn't remarkable. I mean, I've met people who are so damaged, you just can't imagine it, and yet, well, one person I met when I was in Montreal was this woman, and she was just ruined, man. She looked like a street person, and she was so shy, she couldn't even look at you. Like, she basically looked at the ground because it was like there was light emanating from everyone else, and she was way too timid and humble to even bear it. You know, and partly what I was doing was trying to get her to straighten up and not look so street person-ish, because it wasn't going very well for her in social interactions, you know. But it turned out that that isn't what she came to the behavior therapy unit for. And she had her aunt, I think she lived with her aunt who was like schizophrenic, and then her aunt's boyfriend was an alcoholic who like went on long harangues about the devil, and it's like, really, man. And she wasn't bright, this woman, she really wasn't, and you know, she didn't really have a job, and it was just like, it was just not good in every way. And then she also, you know, had this unbelievable humility, and but then, you know, it turned out what she wanted. I just couldn't bloody well believe this, that she had this dog and she used to walk it around. She took care of the dog, and that, you know, that was a good thing. And she'd actually been an inpatient at the Douglas Hospital, which is where I was working. And there were inpatients in the Douglas Hospital, and this was back in the 80s, and those people were like, she was like Superwoman compared to the inpatients at the Douglas Hospital. Those people looked like they were from a Hieronymus Bosch painting, because they had deinstitutionalized everyone that could possibly be deinstitutionalized, and so the only people that were left were people who couldn't be deinstitutionalized, and so those would have been people who were in the psych wards for like 30 years, and all of the hospitals were connected by tunnels underground, and the patients used to hang out down there by the Coke machine and so forth. And one day I took my brother down there, he was visiting, and like, it was just like, he just turned white, you know, because it was just, really, I don't know if you know Hieronymus Bosch, he's very an interesting painter to say the least, but that's what it was like. And so here was her idea. She'd come to the behavior therapy unit because she'd been in the inpatient ward for a while, and she met some of these like ruined people, and she tried to get the hospital. She thought, well, I'm walking my dog, you know, and well, maybe I could take one of these patients out for a walk, you know. And she'd been talking to the hospital administrators, trying to get her, allow her to go, you know, take out one of these patients and go for a walk with her dog. And basically she had come to the behavior therapy unit because that's what she wanted to do. It was like, man, that person, she just blew me away. Like, it's like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, she had nothing going for her, like nothing, and yet she wanted to, you know, help some people that were worse off. And like, there just weren't that many people that were worse off than her. Mind-boggling, mind-boggling. And I never forgot it, and it really blew me away. So, you know, there are opportunities for elevating your sights within your realm of capability wherever you happen to be, and that's interesting. It's strange that that's the case. She brings those who love, that's what that should say, the sweet fulfillment of their secret longing, like a bolt out of the blue. Fate, characterized here as feminine, and that's what happens in the movie. The movie's got a Christian underbelly, like, it's quite pronounced, but it's really a pagan movie in many ways. So for example, there's no blue fairy and the reason I'm speaking of Christianity, of course, is because this movie was created in a culture where Christianity was still reasonably intact, and of course it was fully informed by that. But the underlying mythos is not precisely Christian, even though it's informed by Christian imagery. There is this old idea, I think it's a Gnostic idea, that the wisdom of God is feminine, something like that, and anima, which means soul, is feminine. And so there's an idea like that lurking here. And anyways, that's fate, and that's the blue fairy in this particular movie. You know, she comes down from the star, which is kind of makes her an avatar of God. That's the idea. And she's the transformative agent. She's really Mother Nature, you know, in her positive guise, and that's why she can animate. To animate something means to infuse it with soul. That's what it means. And she animates Pinocchio, right? She's the force that frees him from his strings, and so that's her. Fate, like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees you through. Well, what that means, it means something like this, is that, you know, if you orient yourself properly in the world, and we'll say that you do that by trying to attain the ultimate goal, whatever that happens to be, then it's as if the world is on your side, and and things go well for you, and I also believe that's true, because certainly one of the things that's more or less self-evident is that generally speaking, if you tell the truth, things go a lot better for you. And the reason for that is, well, do you want to have reality opposed to you, or do you want to have reality backing you up? It's like, it's a pretty straightforward question. If you're truthful to the degree that you can be truthful, then reality is on your side. That's a good thing, because there's a lot of it and there isn't much of you. Whereas if you take a deceitful approach to things, then, well, then you're challenging reality. It's like, good luck with that, man. It's like you're holding a plastic ruler in front of your face and bending it, you know, and at some point you're going to let go, and it's going to, all that force that you've stored up, and it's going to snap back and nail you, and that happens. Like, I've just never seen anyone in my clinical practice ever get away with anything. Nothing. And it's not surprising. It's like, if you're going to mess with the structure of reality, like, it's going to mess back, and it does. And it might not happen for years, and you might not even notice the connection. I mean, part of what you do in psychotherapy is actually make those connections. It's like, why did this horrible thing happen to me? Well, who knows? It's like, let's take it apart. Well, who knows how far back we have to go? It might even have things to do, not even with you, it might have things to do with the errors in your parents' relationship. Like, you just can't mess with the structure of reality. It stays warped until you straighten it out, and it's not good. So there's an injunction here, which is that, you know, if you follow this path, you pick a high goal and you put your heart in it, you know, you commit to it, believe in it. Believe means to love. Believe and be love. It's the same thing. It means to act out. And that's what the belief means. Like, we think belief means to accept a set of propositions as true. Well, that is one form of belief, but that's more like factual knowledge, right? Belief is more like you decide that you're going to act something out. You make a decision and then you act it out, and that's a reflection of your belief. You know, it's you're staking yourself on something. Do you know? Well, no, because you can't. You can't know. You're bounded by ignorance. You can make your best guess and move forward. And you can do that with commitment, but you have to believe in order to do that. I guess that's why it's a wish. Okay, so fine. Well, then we have Jiminy Cricket. And that's southern US slang for Jesus Christ, by the way. And the initial overlap isn't a fluke. I mean, I'm sure the animators thought that was funny, and of course it is funny. And you know, in The Lion King, you know that baboon who's the shaman, basically? Well, to begin with, he was kind of just a comic relief character, like a fool, you know? But one of the things Jung mentioned about the fool is that the fool tends to turn into the savior. It's an archetypal reality. Bugs Bunny is sort of like that, you know, he's a trickster. And as the movie developed, the character of the fool baboon took on the full-fledged, you know, shaman priest element. And you know, okay, well, Jiminy Cricket, he's this little cricket, and he turns out to be the conscience, which is pretty damn weird. It's like a bug is your conscience, and a bug is JC, and it's like, that's a very strange juxtaposition of ideas. Conscience, insect, savior. It's like, what's up with that? And so, well, what bugs you? That's part of it. Well, your conscience certainly bugs you, and you should pay attention to it. It's just a little niggling, annoying thing that you can't quite, you can override it, right? Obviously. But it's this, well, and he says, when he talks to Pinocchio later, he says it's that still small voice, you know. And I've asked people before, like in my personality class, like, because conscience is a weird thing. And like, if I said to you, if you're about to do something that you know you shouldn't do you have a voice in your head that tells you that you shouldn't do it? So how many people have had that experience? Okay, good. Now, so other people have a feeling instead of a voice. And so, is there anybody here who's willing to admit it, who has neither the feeling nor the voice? Okay, so, and you know, it's a very understudied phenomena in psychology, this conscience. I mean, people can be conscientious, and maybe those are people who listen to their conscience more. I don't know, but nobody's ever investigated it. And the fact that you do have this little voice, whatever it is, inside your head, it's like, well, what the hell's up with that? you know, and it doesn't tell you what you want to hear.